Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to My Two Cents. I'm here with my boy Sean. What's up, Sean?
Yo, what's going on, Justin? What's up, everybody? My Two Cents is back.
I know it's been a minute, like always. I want to thank Jonathan Phillips, our sponsor from Max Muscle Huntington Beach, fully tested products. You guys know Jonathan very well. Been on the show. Mention this podcast. Get 10% off all products from Max Muscle Huntington Beach. Be sure to check him out. A lot of stuff has happened.
Yes, yeah, a lot of stuff has. So your nose looks great. I know.
Yeah,
I followed that whole thing.
Yeah, people, if you guys didn't know, I was out in front of Gold's Gym just leaving my last client. And I just went out real quick, and there was this beautiful little pit bull, maybe about a year and a half old. And I knew his owner really well. And he just told me he just rescued the dog. Was super scared, really, really timid, even jumpy. He said all those three words, and he's a rescue. And because of my history with like rescuing dogs myself and predominantly pit bulls, I felt fine and confident to sit down and like say what's up to this dog. And he wasn't aggressive by any means. All it was him being ridiculously scared. And when I sat down, all I did, I took my time too. Like when I first sat down, I totally took my time. I could tell he was very, very scared, but like he seemed trusting at the same time. And he didn't bite me. All it was a pop to my face to warn me that.
Yeah, y'all kind of knocked heads, right? And then like his tooth just sort of hit your nose.
Yeah, he just smashed me. It wasn't even a bite. All I did was smash me with like his face to my face. So it was actually very nice of him to not bite me. I appreciate that to the dog. But
yeah, you still have a nose. That's a plus.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been crazy if he actually was aggressive and tried to bite me. I would have probably a really ugly, mangled face at this point. And I wasn't even close to him. If I were to guess, like how far from face to face, we were probably about 2.5 feet. It was quite the distance. He just like, as soon as I went to go touch his, like the top of his head, like he looked like he was gonna let me, but like his ears went down, and he looked really scared. Like but I honestly thought that I'd be quick enough if he did like get weird, or I was far enough away. You know what I mean?
People at home. Justin's had dogs forever, and you've been around rescues a ton. And so if there's anybody who knows how to handle them, you do. I remember when you guys got Charlie too, and he was all, like a ton of fucking hair. And yeah, you guys cleaned him up. And so I love the way that you handled it afterwards, like via social media and some of the stories and stuff. Like, this was not the dog's fault, like you said. His owner warned.
We never know their history. It's just like any type of other human out there. A lot of these animals, they're scared for a reason. He could have had a horrible history where he was mistreated or, abused or whatnot, or neglected by human beings. And the fact that he wasn't aggressive shows he was a really cool dog. I felt bad for the owner because the owner told me, all things to look out for, and smashed me in the face. So it was my choice to sit down and say what's up after him letting me know like where this dog's history is. But yeah, all said and done, just be more careful next time and good to go. It was
sure.
Fun. It was
and how many stitches did you have total?
I had 8 on the bridge where he like split it open, and then I think 7 across the nose. The ugly part is across the nose where it was funny. It wasn't even a bite. All it was when dogs do like the playful open, like their mouth is just relaxed open. It's not open for any particular reason, just relaxed open. They do the pop with the snout, where it's just their fucking face. Well, that's what he did, just right on my face. And it just so happens his teeth grazed my face. It wasn't even a bite. It was just from him grazing me, like by punching me in the face with his face. So it was...
Well, I'm glad you're on the mend, and I appreciate it again how you blasted that on social media. I loved watching the video. Like Dayla and I, I think also you and Steph people become invested in y'all's lives and want to see what you're doing on the daily. And so Dayla and I are watching this video, and she was like, "Did you see what happened to Justin?" And I was like, "Yeah, like he just posted what happened." She was like, "What?" And checked it out.
Well, what's funny was as soon as it happened, the only thing that went through my mind was fucking inconvenience. Because it was Friday, and I was like ready to go home and totally unplug and relax. And like now I'm like, now I have to go to the emergency room and sit for like 2 or 3 hours till someone sees me. And like
that's the biggest thing you're upset
about. That's what I was most
inconvenience
of sitting in traffic with this face. And then I was like, is this gonna? And then I was, for a second, I was like, I wonder how bad it was, because at first I didn't know. So when I moved my hands away, there was a lot of blood just from being a cut. on a few different locations. And plus, my nose was actually bleeding from him smashing me. So I couldn't tell how bad it was. And then when I went upstairs, there was actually a doctor in the men's locker room, like while I was trying to wash my face. Yeah, I know. And he's like, it should be fine. Don't worry about it. I don't even know if they'll give you stitches. But they wound up giving me stitches instead of using the butterfly sticky tape. And it's healing pretty good. I think like in another month and a half, it should be almost completely faded to where you won't be able to see it. So no harm. It's all good.
Nice, man.
Yeah, man. Let me pull something up.
Well, I know a lot of time has passed. I know for like reasons, and I know we're both doing stuff busy, but we do have a lot to cover, and we've been texting back and forth. And everybody that listens to My Two Cents, we appreciate it. And kind of how we do episodes is we'll message each other back and forth what we want to talk about.
For sure, it's one of the things me and you like. It's a great tool for me, honestly, because most of the time, when I discover most of my thoughts, it's usually if I'm a little stoned, to be honest. So
when we have our best thinking,
when we have our best thinking, lets me be as present as I can, and it helps me be able to text you like these thoughts real quick to remind me to talk about them or go over it or clarify them even. So it's a huge help being able to do that with you.
Yeah, and what's funny is Justin actually texted me before we started the recording this one with different topics, and I just took a look at him, and no shit, Dayla and I have been talking about a few of these on our own, and Justin and I hadn't talked about it before he sent me this list, and in our, how long we've known each other, like 6-7 years now, this has always been the case, and this is why I love hanging out with you, is we can go like months without talking, and then we sit down and we're both on the same page.
It's nice though too, because it's like all it does is like get clearer, the thought process in a way, and it becomes more simple to like dissect it and like come to a better answer without being so emotional, I guess, over it. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned over the years of it's the same answer. It's just less ridiculousness with it, you know what I mean? Less drama with it, less negativity, less like the world's gonna end with stuff. Like it's not as dramatic. So I figured out like how to approach it just a little bit better. The outcome is the same. It's the same, but getting there is a little bit simpler. Like breaking it down is becoming easier. And I think it just all comes down to like just losing entitlement and having, correct expectations and, checking yourself and what you really have going on. It's a bunch of cool shit figuring out, and then like it's simplifying, and then it's easier and easier. I'm trying to find the list you sent me.
Oh, go ahead.
Where did you find where did you send the list? I thought it was via text message.
I thought it was. Was
it text message?
Yeah, I think it was. Hold on. Yeah. If you scroll back a little bit, I can just send it. I'll forward it to you.
Yeah, could you forward me again?
But yeah, kind of what Justin was saying in terms of making it easier, I would talk about like shedding. And we all sort of shed the shit that we don't need, like in materialistic terms, and then also spiritually. I equate it to, like, I don't think you guys own a ton of stuff. Dayla and I are minimalists, and they've done sort of research that when one's outer world is uncluttered, their inner world is uncluttered as well, and vice versa. And
For sure. It has helped us a lot too. And what helps people always ask is like, how do we go about understanding this? I think us, like the documentaries help, and I know books help a lot of people to help remind them to like maybe try to minimalize or make things less complicated, because I think we're programmed to continue to make things more complicated or to manifest the fake stress to like consider living almost, you know what I mean? Like we add another bill, or we buy another car, or we buy a new car every 5 years, or we worry about the type of house we need, or the things in the house, and all these things are just things that we create that we end up stressing over. And I think naturally I don't do that. I don't worry about that kind of stuff, but some people do. They worry about that, or they saw that their parents did it, so they picked up one of these traits or a couple of these traits, and it's just something they're not even aware of not doing. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just showing people that that's an option.
Sure.
Most people don't know that's an option. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because like you said, we're conditioned. A lot of it is the advertising around us. Like you said, a lot of people glean stuff from books, and that's me, as you know.
Yeah.
And I've been reading this book called Happy Money, and it's all about spending one's money to be happier and maximize happiness. And, scientifically, the materialistic bullshit does not make people happy. We've
No,
proved that over and over again.
they're just tiny little glimpses of little dopamine, little releases, and you know what I mean? Like just small rewards that are not going to be satisfying in the end. So you're completely right about that.
Yeah, like, Dayla and I have been watching some of the NBA playoffs, and there's a few commercials in there, and we're in Texas, and so there's, people want to buy like boats and RVs and those like four-wheelers and stuff, and I'm looking, and it's like, you can pay like $8,000 for a four-wheeler, or like, monthly payments of $120 forever, and that's what gets people in these holes, and then they can't live their lives.
Yeah, like living to have the materials, that is a false sense. For sure. Like I said, I think a lot of times it's like if you guys are listening, we're programmed to like buy these things to feel that's the way to have fun or be successful or all these there's so many different approaches, and I think the biggest thing is like most of those things that we're buying are trying to fill our false sense of what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, I think it's trying to fill holes.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what like. We talked about, expensive cars in the past, and like that's great if people have the resources and they get a kick out of that, et cetera. But if you're like, oh shit, my relationship isn't doing so hot, or I don't feel great about my job, let me go out and buy a car, that's not going to fix the problem.
Yeah, it's like almost like the midlife crisis thing that people do. And I think people do it way before midlife crisis. They're doing it. They're buying the nice car once they could afford it. Most of the time, and not for themselves. It's to feel fit in or successful. I think and everybody kind of tends to do this just by the fact that I think they're supposed to. Like I said before, they don't even see the other side of it. Like, oh, you don't need it. Like you can spend your money obviously somewhere else. I mean, it's pretty neat once you find that and you realize like the comfort of it. And most of the time you don't even end up spending money once you realize the cool shit, which is just hanging out with your friends and enjoying those small things. Like even last night, all my friends were talking about how they wanted to. I mean, I love events, don't get me wrong, but I almost have just as much fun just hosting something small at my house with a good group of select people and get this beautiful satisfaction out of it, as opposed to paying all this money, going somewhere, having all the expenses. And that's fun too, but a lot of people stress about the expenses on the way there,
right.
Why they're there, and even like it almost affects them while they're back from whatever event they were at.
Shit, I got to work harder to make it back.
And so that's why I started realizing, like, is I don't like that feeling. And Steph didn't like that feeling either. So we're like, well, why do that? Like, we don't have to do that. We can do it this way. And so you start just thinking a little bit differently naturally. But first is just being aware of it.
Yeah, and learning more about oneself. I mean, that's I go back to that book, Happy Money. It's really influenced my shit recently. You mentioned events. I know you and I both go to festivals, and we enjoy doing that at appropriate times. And even, events that you guys might throw at your place, like there are costs associated, right? You're not going to like Anaheim to a festival, but you're still like getting water for everybody. You're getting food for the place. You might, clean up a little bit. But in terms of like cerebral happiness, if one pays for something up front, which would be like a festival or would be to get your guy's house ready to host an event, and then you enjoy it later versus the other way around, which is how credit cards have kind of, demolished society. It's like enjoy now, pay later. Switch that. And then it said that the more one can get in the weeds of the event, the happier they'll be. And I was joking with Dayla that like festivals are made for this. So you pay in advance and then you get excited. And like you were saying earlier, you manage expectations like, oh shit, check out the lineup. And then when the lineup comes out, it's like, oh man, we need to be at this stage. And then, an hour later, we need to be at this stage. And then when one goes, they've already spent the money and they've prepared for like, 2 months, getting super excited for it. And cerebrally, that's how we become the happiest.
That's true. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I never even thought of it. Yeah, that's so true. Let me look at the text message you just sent me. Topics. Oh, you had some intermediate fasting. You wanted to get into that a little bit?
I have a friend, a mutual friend of ours, David Nomberg. Shout out to David. He's at Coachella right now, but he's working it.
Okay, cool.
He's on the side. He does photography and video, and so he rented a drone and hired a couple of people. So he's just working away. But he said intermittent fasting has really helped him out. And Dayla and I have looked at it a lot, and we've, kind of tossed the ball around in terms of conversationally about it. And we've fallen back on, we're so active, like I can't imagine not eating if we're working out, if we're going to work,
Yeah.
etc. And so I wanted to pick your brain if you guys have looked into it at all.
You know what? I personally do now. I not technically full intermediate fasting because I have the coconut oil in the morning, but I somewhat fast for quite a bit of time in the morning. Usually maybe 4 to even 6 hours. The first 4 to 6 hours that I'm up, and I usually train once, maybe twice before that first shake.
Wow.
I think a lot of people in Europe actually do this as well. They usually go most of their day fasting, and then they do majority of their meals at the very end of the evening too. I knew a lot of people that almost had 1 or 2 meals, but it was at the very end of the day. And I think over here in the States, it was like this, the myth of like not even eating before bed or eating carbs before bed, and that's just
Right.
That's not true. That's just not true. It's about caloric intake and like what you're burning. So if you're active in what you're burning and you figure out like what calories are good for you to, whatever your goals are, you can kind of almost eat them whenever you like. You can eat them all in one sitting. You can eat them all throughout the day. So what you
One
do
just
is
needs to get it in.
one just needs to get it in, and then what you do is you realize, how do you like it the best way? Because everybody's a little different. Some people really need to eat like a full breakfast before training in the morning, and then someone like myself and even Steph, we like to eat very minimal through almost the entire day. Like we try to get our nutrition in, but we try to make it as small as possible, simply because it slows our brain down. It makes us a little bit more lethargic. So it all depends on your goals. Like if someone was trying to be the biggest bodybuilder in the world, he's probably not going to want to do what I'm doing. He's probably trying to like stuff himself all fucking day. He doesn't care that he gets tired. He doesn't care that he gets lethargic or falls asleep, wherever he is. So I think it all depends on the goals. I think intelligently, I think intermediate fasting is actually really, really good for the most part. Not full on like not eat. If you feel like you need to eat though too, that's what I always say is like, we'll just eat something small then.
Yeah.
There is no one set program, but I feel like intermediate fasting or light eating through the day is a really solid approach for most humans. Like they tend to, anybody that does it and hits me up like, hey, I've been following your protocol where you kind of fast through most of your mornings and you just have the coconut and I feel fantastic. I have energy. I don't even get hungry. And then they eat light through the day and they keep it predominantly fats and proteins. And then they have their meals at night, their bigger meals at night. And that's kind of like what I do. But like I said, everybody's different. Everybody's metabolism different. So you just kind of find your way and see what works better for you.
That makes sense. Yeah, and like you said, based on one's goals, what they're trying to accomplish.
It's
cool.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another thing too. I was trying to make clear. It's like I think most people have the misconception because I've done bodybuilding before and I'm a big guy that I'm concerned about always being big. And I was just having this conversation the other day. It's like that's kind of like the last thing that I'm ever thinking about. To be honest, like I'm never worried.
You're just going out and living.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother topic. It's like I realize that most people take whatever it is they're doing, maybe their job or maybe their hobby that becomes very passionate about it. It almost becomes a representation of who they are every minute of the day. It's almost like, like you could be a bodybuilder, but you don't have to think about your meals all day long. You can be a bodybuilder and you don't have to talk about it in every single one of your posts. You could be a bodybuilder and not pose like a bodybuilder in every single picture, even if you're out having dinner with your mom. You get
Sure.
what I mean? Like it becomes
For
an obsession almost, and I think it's really interesting to see how people do that. And I try to make them realize like there's so much more. There's so much more than just being. Think bigger. You can be a bodybuilder, but you can be Justin the bodybuilder, but you can also be Justin the dog rescue. Then you could be Justin, the husband. Then you could be Justin like who does this and Justin do this, and then it's a bit of everything. And it's interesting to see how human beings do that. They usually take like a certain thing and they make it everything. Like it has to be absolutely. I was always wondering like why.
I mean, I completely agree. I think part of the why is societal. Because like people see you and so they immediately put you in a bucket. It's like the issues we have with like Leonardo DiCaprio, for instance. Like dude's been pontificating about climate and global warming, et cetera, for like 15, 20 years. But just because like we as society put him in this bucket of he's just an actor, the minute he's like, hey, do you have time to talk about climate change today? We're like, hey, bro, no, you're an actor. Like you guys stay in your lane. You can't get out of it. And so I think part of it is societal, which of course,
true.
affects our shit. But yeah, I completely agree. When I was swimming at Georgia, like I think this happens at every university, like big university with athletic programs, is you have the sweats. So like I had sweats that said like Georgia swimming on the chest, and like the sweats on the sweatpants and stuff. And people used to go to class like that. And I get it, because you're going from training to training, et cetera, et cetera. And you're just like, you know what, fuck it. Like I don't want to wear normal clothes. But, you know, and I know I'm not alone in this. I would make a conscious choice to wear normal clothes to go to class, because I was like, swimming is a part of who I am, but it doesn't make me, like, that's not the whole thing.
You're
And I
not
didn't
just
want
Sean the swimmer.
exactly. And I didn't want the professors to be like, oh, look at, you know, another fucking jock over there.
I think it's
like,
important
hey, you know,
to establish that, because I don't think it's a healthy behavior, to be honest. And I was guilty of it when I was younger, when I was at first, you know, what's funny is like, it's almost like the culture forms you to be that, though, because when I first got into quote unquote bodybuilding, I didn't think about bodybuilding either. Even when I did my first like 4 or 5 shows, I never thought about bodybuilding. I would
You're just like, this is fun.
This is fun. Yeah, and it really was the most fun because I was probably the most present. And then what I think the problem is, once it becomes, I guess it all depends on it goes really deep. I guess it comes on the reasons why you're bodybuilding. And then that goes deep down another rabbit hole. You know what I mean? So I guess like, yeah, you can keep getting into it. But I really realized like how society does this. And I think it's important to like pay attention to not do this so much. Like, where am I trying to go with this? I'm just trying to probably put this in the best words as possible. What do you
Well, Dayla and I talk about this from time to time, and I get what you're saying in terms of the rabbit hole. And I think it's good for everybody to step back and kind of evaluate their motivations and why they're doing certain things. It's, you know, it's good for people who have a 9 to 5, like step back and be like, you know, am I accomplishing my goals? Is this really making me happy? Or at least, you know, I'm not banging my head against a wall. And so I think it's good to step back and evaluate why we're doing things from time to time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like, you know, I play basketball in the mornings to work out, but I'm not playing in leagues anymore. And my dad asked me the other day, like, you know, do you think you ever play in leagues? And that caused me to evaluate. I guess
it's probably
like,
good to go down the rabbit hole, like, is what I'm trying to get at.
But that's scary for a lot of people.
Why do you think the behavior is? Why do you think people become so invested in becoming, they need to be part of a team, even, like to be, even if it's for something they don't believe in, just to be a part of a team, or just to say they're this or say they're that. And it's like, it's everything. It's like, they think it's the entire universe, them getting ready for something, or their game, or their Super Bowl even. And
right. It's probably community. Like we're hardwired, right? Like we're supposed to find our tribe, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, even if someone's doing something they're not really into, they're like, oh, well, I have this group and that can define who I am. Maybe. I don't know. It goes back to like high school, right? Like everybody had like their
you think it goes back into just trying to fit in and be a part of a community, you feel?
Potentially. Because like think about, I'm sure you do. I mean, Dale and I talk about from time to time just fucking like disappearing, you know, and just like I've had it with the noise and the conditioning and everything around us. But that's that's a huge decision to sort of take oneself out of it. And I think the converse of that is being a part of like little groups and little clubs and sort of trying to define oneself. Because I think it's scary, right, to go down those rabbit holes and try to define oneself and what are my motivations? Why am I doing
why are you
certain
choosing
things?
to do what you're doing? Goes back to like what are you doing it for? And then you kind of break it down, and that's the hard part. I think a lot of times like
it might be like the materialistic, what we were just talking about. You know, it's like, oh shit, fill a hole, let me buy a car, have a midlife crisis. It's like, oh shit, I don't want to evaluate what's going on, so like let me try to join another group.
I'll buy a car and be a part of the car club for a little bit and fill that, that little dopamine for a little bit short time, and then eventually that won't be as happy, and then I'll have to do it again in another group, and so on and so forth. Yeah, that pretty much nails it. I wanted to get into fucking Josh Brolin and cable.
Yes, thank you. It's I appreciate it because it's made me super cool, because all of my friends at work who are into comic books and movies, they're coming up and they're like, oh, did you see Josh Brolin was cast? And I was like, guess what? I know his trainer. Like, check out these videos.
I'm not a comic book person. I feel bad for not being one. But
that's the group. You don't need to identify if you don't want to.
It's so true, yeah. But it's so exciting because Josh is so excited. We started training this week, and he's super excited about just getting in shape for this role and really owning this role. He's pumped. He's pumped. It's like,
Can I geek out about it for a second?
For sure, 1,000%.
Yeah, so and I'm sure you know all this, but for people listening at home, like Deadpool, the movie with Ryan Reynolds, which is based off the Deadpool comic, was the first R-rated comic book movie, I think ever, and it was hugely successful.
It's my
The
favorite
budget,
one.
yeah, the budget
My
was
favorite
like
one.
30 million. They made billions of dollars, and so the next round of films includes Cable, which, to go completely nerd out, is Cyclops' son in the comics. So if you're a big X-Men fan, this is Cyclops' son in the future. His name is Cable. He's got some special abilities, obviously being a mutant. And he's also a part of this group called X-Force, which is with Deadpool and a few others, like Domino is another character, female character that I know is going to be in the next Deadpool movie. And so they're looking to expand this universe and make it bigger. And I thought it was so cool to get a guy like Josh Brolin who can carry a franchise like by himself. And now
That's
you put
true.
him with a guy like Ryan Reynolds. And it's like, oh shit, you could do, he's going to be doing Cable movies for the next like 20 years.
Yeah, he said that it's like it's a big commitment. Like it's like nonstop busy for like 4 or 5 years. Like it's
Yeah.
not gonna stop. And I'm like, so he's excited, but he's ready for it. He's super pumped. And what's cool is too, I can't think of his name. I feel like a dick, but the guy who plays the Spider-Man in the suit, the guy who does all the
Okay.
tricks, he goes to our gym as well at Gold's.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
really cool. So he's the guy under. I can't even think of his name. I feel like an asshole. But he's the guy doing all the tricks and the stunts and stuff in the Spider-Man costume. So it's what's nice about Gold's. You get a lot of like these. And Thor comes in every now and then. The guy who plays Thor, he comes in every now and then. And he's tall as fuck. I didn't realize how tall he is. He's huge. He's a tall dude.
He goes to that restaurant that's down the street from Firehouse. I'm blanking on the name. I'm sure you know it. It was like closer to our place
Was it the Rose
when I was
one?
living out there.
The
Yeah. I think it's the Rose one.
Rose Cafe with the one with the giant rose on the thing? You think
It
you
might
went to
be.
that one? It changed
Well,
now
it's a
'cause
really-
Google bought all that out. It actually is a really nice shop now too, where you just walk in and grab some food. And yeah, Google pretty much bought the whole street. That whole street is totally bought out, and they bought, I think, Rose Cafe. They might have kept the name. I
Okay.
think, but it's I know what you're
He was-
talking about.
He was super nice. Took pictures with people and like kissed babies and whatnot. And that's what's cool about Gold's. What I tell people is like it's a normal gym. Like people
Yeah.
live around there and go, and they're trying to just work out around work. But then every now and then you see a guy like The Rock or you see 50
Yeah,
Cent.
they come in a lot more than you think too. Like Arnold comes in every day around 7 or 8 almost in the morning, and The Rock comes in periodically when he's in town. So you see a lot of these guys in there, and it's a little bit more normal for us because we see it so much. But if they come during the tourist season, those guys are fucked. Like they can't get like it's so funny. Like when Arnold comes in during normal hours, it's like nice and chill. Everybody just says hello and leaves him alone. But if it's tourist season, he's got about like 25 people like with their phones waiting for him to finish his pec deck.
Wow.
Yeah, just like ready to take a picture. And he's like, yeah, on the way out. I'll catch you on the way out. He's really
Yeah.
good about it. He's a good dude about it. So
I love the video you had about Brolin too, like laying down on the
Oh,
turf
man.
out back, the thumb up.
So what we're doing is our main focus for getting him ready for this role is upper body predominantly, putting on size with his arms, back, chest, and shoulders. But we can't put on like fat. It's got to be pretty lean muscle because the Cable guy checked out. He's huge. He's huge. So what we're doing is a lot of muscle conditioning in the morning, almost like how I train for the most part. So it's all like stretching, plyometric, muscle conditioning in the morning, just sledgehammer work, flipping tires, sled, stuff like that. So really his cardio is what he was dying from in that video. And then after we meet again later in the evening, and it's bodybuilding type of training, which we're filling up the muscle, trying to make it as round and as shapely as possible, building good muscle. And that's kind of like what we're going to be going with for the next 12 to 13 weeks. And I think we could do some really cool things because he naturally, he wants, like his body, if he wanted to be a bodybuilder, he would have huge arms, I think.
He really takes to it.
Yeah, like he's got great lines in his arms and his shoulders, chest and back. Like it's all, and his starting point's fantastic because he's actually in great shape. He looks he looks great, and his face fits the role so perfect. He's got already the perfect gray hair for it. He's got like the best head of hair too. Fucking like great hair, great chiseled face, awesome arms. Like I'm really excited for him to see where he goes with this. And he's just such a humble dude. I'm pumped to watch him on screen.
I've started following him after you guys started training, a few years ago, and he's great to follow. So people listening, like, definitely check out Josh Brolin's Instagram account. It's really motivational. I've tagged my parents in a few of it because they love him as an actor and they liked his dad, and so tagging them in some posts that are very woke, quote unquote.
Yeah, he gets it. It's one thing he's realized too. I think he realized, like, whatever his posts are, he realized. I think we were just talking about the other day. He feels responsible for being a good role model and, like, putting the right stuff out there, and he gets it. You know what I mean? He's like, it's more about him. It's more than him is what I mean.
Sure.
When he makes his posts and what the messages he's trying to send out there for people to be cool and, like, just be human and moral. And those are Josh's posts all the time, is just try to help people, like, think a little bit cooler. So I think it's one of the biggest reasons why I respect him so much.
You're going to have his Cable figurine when the movie comes out. They'll have Josh Brolin as Cable in the figurine. I bet you have, like, a few in the house somewhere.
I'll have to get something for sure, like either one of those cool posters that they get it framed or something like that. That'd be pretty neat to have. Because it's kind of a cool thing that's going to be happening.
Oh yeah. Do you get to go on set at all? And
I
later
haven't asked. Probably not. I imagine. It'd be cool if he ever offered. I'll be like, yeah, sure, why not?
You could. I'm sure they'd just grab you and be like, you want to be an extra for like an hour?
You would be just like a big lunk that gets the shit kicked out of him by a superhero. It'd be perfect.
And you're like, yes, I'm there.
Obviously, I'll snatch a purse. Like, what do you want me to do? You know what show I've been watching that I wanted to talk about? I don't know if you've ever seen it. Is Brain Games. Have you watched Brain Games on Netflix?
Yeah, Jason Silva is the man. I'm a big fan of his. He's a modern day philosopher. People definitely Google Jason Silva.
Is that the dude, the host? Is that the host?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was his name. He's not just like a TV host reading lines. He's more in depth with that shit.
Yeah, definitely.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
YouTube channel. Yeah, he has a YouTube channel called Shots of Awe, and it's literally like a 2-3 minute video, and he just has these sort of like flow state dialogues, and he talks about everything kind of we talk about.
That's awesome.
I'm a
huge, check that out.
huge Jason Silva fan.
What's the YouTube
Jason,
name? Is it
Shots of Awe?
Shots of Awe. I'm gonna have to check that out. Well, I've got recently into Brain Games. I've been watching it for a few months now, and I love it because there's a bajillion episodes.
On Netflix for people if they want to check it out.
And I wanted to get in this because this is, believe it or not, it helped me by watching this. It helped me realize the importance of paying attention to your instinctual reactions to things and how you see things and how you just how you perceive things, and then you can be aware of it just by being a primitive species in some areas. You know what I mean? And then work on changing those things. Like your initial first reaction. And it's huge because I think we have how we view things based on what society teaches us to view things, and how we feel or view things based on our initial reaction to when something happens, like if someone cuts you off in a car or some shit like that. And it's neat when you can see the instinctual part, and then you can be aware of it, and then you can change it, and then hopefully if you are aware of it and change it enough times, it becomes the habit, and then you don't need to be aware of it anymore. You're forever changed this primitive thought process that you were carrying before. I've been doing it quite frequently. It's actually really nice to actually be aware of it. It keeps going back into just being aware of it and like knowing that this is how your brain works. So I suggest everybody to check out this show, or now check out his YouTube channel, and really see how even how your eyes and brains perceive things. And you don't have a choice in this. You have no choice in this whatsoever, like how your reaction is going to be. But you can become aware of how your brain makes these choices, and then you can work on changing or fixing it or evolving as more of an intelligent species. And I think that's what a lot of the world isn't aware of, and that's why it's huge. It was huge. I learned a lot about myself and been able to grow even more by watching this show. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and for people listening at home, definitely recommend it. It's on Nat Geo regularly, but they have a shit ton of episodes, as Justin mentioned, on Netflix. And it usually starts out with like a brain game, and they do something at the beginning, and people think that they're going to get the answer. But like you said, Justin, it's something they kind of trick us based on our hardwiring.
Yes.
And I know we were texting a little bit about the sort of the reptilian brain.
Yeah.
And we can get into that in a sec. But yeah, it sort of plays to I think it's the limbic system in the brain that is based on fear. And it's like we were out in the bush and you had to worry about the fucking tiger that was going to rip your face off. And so you had to pay attention, and it was fight or flight. Thankfully, in the 21st century, we don't have those issues anymore, but certain stresses in life can still tap into them. So if we're on the road and someone cuts you off,
right,
like that fight or flight kicks in. And so per your comment, like, how do we manage that? Because we're now smarter than the fucking cavemen.
Right, we're smarter than, exactly. And that's what I think it comes down to, is like you have to work on being more intelligent for yourself, and that becomes the responsible part, is like you as a human. I used to be that guy that would get so mad where I would ask someone to pull over, and then I would fucking get in a fucking fight when I'm in my early 20s with some stranger on the side of the road for cutting me off or whatever the reason is. And then, you realize how stupid that is. And and the waste of energy that it is. And it's like not even like you can't be that mad about someone cutting off. So then you have to go down the line of like, why am I so mad to the point where I'm ready to like be so mad? And then if it isn't anything, you then want to work on so you're not like that. You get what I mean? So it's like
yep. You want to improve yourself.
Yeah, you want to improve yourself. And these are all the little things I think people, if you can just be aware of it, I think that's the hardest thing. I keep going back to that. It's the fact that they're just not aware of how their brain works. And I was saying, if you really want to become a more intelligent human being, you have to, I think, learn about how the human brain works and how it processes things and how it sees things. And brain games, or this guy's YouTube, it sounds like a phenomenal way to like just kind of learn about the human brain and how it interprets things and how it goes about things. Like, why do you feel jealous? Like, why is it this? Why is it that? Why is it this? And then you can go through and make the changes that you need to evolve. And it's actually much better. It's much better when you make these adjustments. Stress is relieved. Insecurities fade. You're consistently more of in a flow state of happiness. You're not going to let things bother you, because you realize the importance of the time for yourself is that you control that and how you feel, and how you feel through the day. You don't want to let other people manipulate that time or those feelings as you go throughout your day or throughout your life, so that you can make those choices on where you go and who you're with and who you're dating and what food you're eating, because they all make all these. Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. It's actually quite huge. It's pretty neat.
Oh, it's a big one. Dayla and I were talking about it recently. The inputs expand, like you were saying, past what we put into our bodies. It's like what we're listening to, what we're watching, the 100%. People we're hanging out with, that all contributes to it. But yeah, it's like thinking of an example that I heard about recently. Our brains are so fucking advanced that when you're driving and you notice in the rear view a car that's closer, and you're like, oh man, there's somebody's creeping up. They're in my trunk, so to speak. Before you noticed that, your brain already noticed that.
For sure.
And so your brain already has this bubble around you, whether you're in a car or not, that's like your safe space. And it's constantly scanning that. And as soon as a car or a person encroaches upon that, your brain's like, hey, pay attention to that, because that's, it's different than the norm. And so normally, like you were saying, a person might be like, yo, fuck this guy. Like, I'm going to slam on the brakes or like kind of screw with him a little bit, versus being like, oh, my brain recognized that because that person has encroached into my personal space a little bit. But, we're on the 10 freeway. It happens. Let me just keep driving. And if nothing comes up, then I don't need to get worried about it.
Exactly.
And then, like you said, you're not popping out of your car being like, hey, man, why are you on my ass?
And I think it's that I think what people need to realize is like, why don't they have this process? Like the thought process you just have. And I think that's like the one part that people don't realize. Like, that's the work. That's the work you need to put in. And that kind of goes into like everything. It goes into everything. The car is just the small thing. It's about when you're everywhere. It's everywhere. Everything that you do, the decisions you make, the food you eat, the relationships you stay in or not stay in. It all goes down to that same process of like, okay, this is what I can work on and like evolve in as a human. It was huge. Yeah.
And don't get it twisted. I know you and I both talk about the low periods we have, but, like Dayla and I'll talk about certain things are challenging. And I think words have power, which I know they do. And so sometimes if I say something is hard or difficult, I'll catch myself per your comment about the work, and I'll say challenging, because challenges can be overcome.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times Dayla will be like, man, you know, this is so hard at work or whatever. And I'll be like challenging. And she'll be like, yo, fuck you. Like, can't things just suck one of these days? And, you know, there are those days.
And they're
like,
true. Yeah, they totally can. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like,
totally
no, it just sucks. Like, I'm done today. I'm not going to deal with this. And then you know, get some sleep, get some food, wake up, and
that could
be
be a
better
really
the next
great
day.
way to do it too. It's better than getting pissed off. It's just like pulling away, pulling out completely, and be like, you know what? It just sucked today. I'm gonna chill the fuck out and have a glass of wine, and that's normal too. You know what I mean? Like, totally. It's funny. Since we're talking about like being aware of things, I honestly think it's also a form of meditation, because for you to be aware of these things, you also have to be very, very present to work through these things. I think most people, the reason why they can't see the stuff that we're talking about is they're already angry before they got in their car. So the guy cutting them off is like the spilled milk. And like, I mean, there's sometimes...
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm in a great mood and someone cuts me off, I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't care if that guy cuts me off. If anything, I'm just like, oh man, that guy he's driving dangerously, but I'm not upset by it. You know what I mean? Like, the whole thought process is different. Now, say me and Steph got into a fucking fight in the morning and my dog's pissed on the floor and like my clothes...
The milk actually spilled.
The milk actually spilled. And then I get in my car and then some guy cuts me off. I might fucking beat the shit out of that human being. You know what I mean? It's just... So it's... It goes through all the aspects of life. It's like even in the morning, like when you wake up, if you wake up a certain way and how you feel a certain way isn't the greatest, like dissect it, like go through the motions. And this is a form of meditation. This is you working through your problems. And like, again, I think most people aren't aware of that they can do that. They can, like, if they wake up and they don't feel good, it's like, well, why don't you feel good? Like, what did you do the night before? The reason maybe you didn't sleep well. And if you didn't sleep well, this is why you didn't feel good in the morning. And like, what can you do now to fix that? As opposed to just being angry, as opposed to just doing nothing. So that's the tricks I've learned. What causes me to be anxious, or what gives me anxiety, or what brings me out of being present is actually the trick now, because the trick is to always just stay in present, continuously, without trying to stay present, is also the key. So,
it is.
I think realizing, like, what for me, it was my phone. I noticed that one, in the society we live today, we're told how to act and think since we're kids. And the phone, I realized for me, is one of the biggest things that tell you how to think. And not necessarily directly, but subconsciously. Like, if you follow so many people and people are posting just not so much negative, but subconsciously or through their pictures complaining about their life, or complaining about what's going on in the world, or complaining about something, or just their posts aren't very uplifting, or you know what I mean? It's just like, and that seems to be the trend on the feed that you follow. You'll have a thought process on every one of these pictures. You'll have a thought process when you watch the news. You'll have a thought process when you see something fucked up on Facebook, and you'll have these thought processes, and those things will really make you feel a certain way. And I realize
that's scientifically... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Jump in there.
That's scientifically proven as well, what Justin's talking about. So Facebook actually did a study. I don't know if you're aware of this a couple years ago.
Know.
Yeah, they didn't tell anybody until after they had done it. And so it's kind of fucked up because they were purposefully putting on certain people's news feeds, they would push them the negative stuff, and then they would watch the comments and the posts that those people would make, and guess what? They reflected the negativity that they saw. Then afterwards, Facebook came out with the study, and so it's kind of like, why were you doing it to these people? Because you're kind of on purpose making them sad.
But it's a good point proven. It's really radical, and I didn't really notice it. And sometimes it's very, very, very gradual. And I think it also goes into what you have, these tools that can stress you out. Why do you have them, I think, is the next question you have, right? It's like, so then if you want to break it down, like if the phone gives me anxiety when I look at it, I'm like, also, why is it giving me anxiety? So then that's the next question, because if you want to use your phone, because I think if the phone was posting all amazing things, then the phone would be great for you. You get what I mean? Like, it could be...
Completely agree.
Right. If you're watching brain games and hilarious comedies and like really cool shit on your TV's good for you.
Right. Or like who we follow,
Exactly.
following people like yourself, following other people that are pushing out positivity or like positive changes, that sort of thing. Like that's how I like Instagram, because I can escape
Yeah.
from the noise and the negativity and just be in my own little world that's I've curated to be more positive and more what I need in my life.
And I've noticed that people that are aware of this type of feeling, like that comes off these tools that we can use, whether it's good or bad. Again, it's making them aware of like, hey, pay attention to what you're reading every day. Because sometimes I would follow people, and I follow people sometimes just out of being nice, because I know it's nice for them if I follow them. To be honest,
Sure.
and I don't want to unfollow them to offend them.
Yeah, no, it's true.
But it even comes to a certain point where some people, they just don't seem to understand the shit that they're posting. And it's just negative, and then it has to come to a point where you're like, oh, well, I have to do this for myself, because every time I read it, I talk to Steph about it. You know what I mean? It's funny how the energy can travel. I'm like, I wonder what this person thinks when they post this. And then I'll get into a full conversation of how this all works. And then by the end of it, I'm actually a little upset by like how human beings operate. Yeah.
I love how you said it's how energy travels, because that's totally how it is.
And there's so many different variations of how you deal with negativity. And I'll break it down real quick. So like, say someone's talking shit about you at your workplace, and someone comes up and tells you like, hey, this person's talking shit. Now you can handle it this way. You can get all hot and heavy, go over and punch that person in the face. That's one way to do it. And
that doesn't really go over well with HR departments.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, it's a immediate primal reaction. A primitive reaction. And then there's the next one where someone says something to you, and then you vent back to them, and then it goes back to them, and it's like this weird type of thing. And then someone says something to you, and you don't say anything, and then you go home though and you think about it, and it dwells on you there. And then maybe you talk to your girl about it, and it dwells on you there, and it dwells on you the next day, but you never say anything, or you just don't see it at all. And the trick is not seeing it at all. You know what I mean? Like even when it's thrown in your face, and that's a very realistic thing that can happen. And it's amazing when you can reach that type of state of
enlightenment,
mind.
so to speak.
Yeah, and that's the part that's being aware of the fact that the first part though is you have to work on it by not being upset. The understanding, like I wonder, like you don't even have to put it in thought. Before I used to wonder why that person would talk shit. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I don't even need to understand why that person's talk shit. That just sucks for them, and then you can move on through there. You know what I'm saying? And then eventually it's just like, oh
yeah,
it's pretty amazing, like the way you can keep getting better at it and break down. Because I used to be the guy that would get out of the car. Then I used to be the guy that would just give the finger out of the car because I got a little bit better. Then I used to be the guy who would get pissed and like fucking tell Steph what a piece of shit this guy is. And then it became like, whatever. You know what I mean? I was like, and there's like these breakdowns, and that just happened overnight. I think it's important to really make clear.
Oh yeah,
like being aware
it does
of
take
it
practice.
is huge, and it takes practice. And then once you practice it enough, it does become the habit, and then you're consistently in the more so flow state of enlightenment, and you don't really have these bad days. It
is challenging to do, and like you said, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of work and a lot of questioning one's motivations and what makes them tick.
And that goes back to the brain games. That goes back to understanding your lizard brain. That's goes back to understanding like your natural impulse is to be angry. Have control of that. Have some more, be more intelligent and understand this is how the human brain works, and then fix it and then work on it. And I think that's the biggest part, is that people don't see it, they don't know about it, and then they can't work on it.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, counter to what I was talking about earlier, it is difficult to do because from what I've read and kind of my practice, it comes from forgiveness. For people that want to read up on it a little bit more, there's a guy, Gary Renard, Renard. He's got like 4 or 5 books. It's kind of out there, but he talks about how love and forgiveness is kind of the key to ending all suffering. And there's been tons of different examples of, back in the civil rights era where the KKK would, kill some black kid. And then 30, 40 years later, that same KKK person like runs into that person's brother, runs into that person's father. And the hurt party is like, hey, it's all good. Like, I understand, I don't agree with it, but I understand your conditioning and like why you had to do what you do. But, I love you as another human. I understand that. And I'm not going to, to go back at you. Yeah. It stops here. And those instances have had huge emotional impact on those people. So
that's Martin Luther King. That's your MLK.
Exactly.
That's your Jesus.
Exactly.
You get. That's why I always tell people it's like it's one of those things, like it really does go far. kindness, you know, even if it is hard to do a lot of times. And I've done that numerous times with human beings just to see what would happen, people I would have normal beef with. And it's quite fascinating. 1 second. This thing just popped up.
It kind of brings the power back. It's
crazy. Like anybody can try it. I had one guy I had for no reason. I could feel the energy with this one individual that was in my working environment, and he just didn't like me, and I didn't like him because he didn't like me. And that was just how it was. And for a while, like, someone was like, "You don't like that guy?" I'm like, "No, for some reason, the fucking prick." You know what I mean? And I really didn't like him because for some reason, I knew he didn't like me for no reason. And I took it personally. And for quite a while, like, I would see that person and I would have a feeling, and he would be controlling my environment. You know what I mean? And then I realized, like, that's incredibly crazy. It's incredibly silly. It's incredibly crazy to manifest this feeling out of nothing, out of, like, thin air. So there's ways to go about it. Like, I went up to the person and just, like, one day he was having a conversation with a mutual friend, so I took that as an opportunity to go say what's up to my friend, and then say what's up to this person and give him a fist bump. I'm like, all right, guys, have a good day. And that alone... Yeah, because
he's like, what the fuck? I thought this guy hated me, and now he's like dapping
a lot
me
of
up.
times, and we don't know why that person doesn't like me, right? He may not like me. Maybe this person's insecure about themselves, and maybe sees me as a threat, or maybe sees me as this. You know, these are just possible thoughts that this person had for real reason they don't like me, and they manifest this in their head, and then I just see that energy as disrespectful, or I see this energy and I take it this way personally, which is also just as silly because he doesn't know me. So how can I take it personally? I know who I am. And that's the thing too, is like, people don't seem to understand. If you know who you are, people can't offend you. That's like one of the biggest tricks that I learned. If I like myself, if I truly love myself, people can't offend you. So that person talking shit can't upset you. They don't have the effect. They don't have the impact. And then you realize, like, once you realize that most people are upset about spilled milk, and it's not about you, it's not about this.
They had a tough morning, and now they're taking it out.
Or they have a tough life. You don't know.
Right.
So then you have the empathy card you can play. So I didn't want to be mad at this person being mad at me. I wanted to try to understand why they were mad at me. And then I realized they weren't mad at me at all. It's because they have other shit. And then that other shit they need to work on. But you can make it easier by letting them know that we're fine. Like, you can create, and then, man, it makes everything easier.
Because you're helping them out now.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden, you're like the good guy.
And this is how you actually deal with stuff in your relationship too. People don't realize that most of the time, people in relationships, usually what happens is that insecurities come up from how we're, raised, stuff we've been through. And at first, you're in the relationship and you're giving it everything, and then you get to know each other, and sometimes what that person does could cause insecurities. Not cause insecurities, like bring out the insecurities that you have for whatever reason.
There you go. Yep.
And these are cool things, because then if you are aware of this, you can work on fixing these manifested bullshit things and realize there is no threat. There is none of that. It's all it's all fake.
Right. Well, and like you said earlier, you see that person at the gym and they're making you feel some type of way, and you basically give your power away.
Yeah, for sure.
And so people that do that, and they're like, oh man, that person made me feel that way. It's like, why did you give your power away to have them make you feel badly for no reason? And I completely agree with you in a relationship. Like, it's I see a therapist. I've seen a therapist now for like 2 years, probably like once a month. And, maybe like once every 6 times, like there's something Dayla and I are working through or talking about. And I'm like, how can I want a 30,000 foot view. Like, I want this therapist view, which is, she's super helpful with that.
Yeah.
Like non-family member, and look at it. And I'm like, how can I help support my partner in this, or like this situation, instead of the nonstop vicious cycle of just like bitching about it, or
it's so great that you do that, because most people don't want to work together I was just having this conversation the other night with these 2 friends of mine who are in relationships, and like they're going through something, and I'm like, well, you got to remember that there's no winner, there's no loser. It's not that you're right and that she's wrong, or she's right and you're wrong. You're in a relationship and you want it to be successful, so work on it together. It's funny when you can take the other shit out of it, like, because they're fighting for not the reasons they're fighting about. A lot of times it's usually due to issues they haven't brought up or talked about, or
like the spilt milk we're talking about.
Spilt milk, right? It's never the actual like, hey, let's break it down. Why are you so upset? It can't be about the milk. Why are you upset? And then they could be like, well, I'm upset about this. I'm like, yeah, but how did you get to this point? I mean, were you not doing this? Were you not doing this? Are you taking the things you need to do? Are you working hard enough here to advance so you are happy? And then you can break it down those things, and then you can start working on these things to improve yourself as your own human, yourself. And then the relationship is just kind of like easy. The relationship follows. Yeah. It's easy after that. Like, it's funny.
And it's a virtuous cycle because everyone's supporting each other through what they're going through. And it's like, hey, we're a unit, we're a team. And so let's go at this together.
For sure. And I think tone's everything. That's one thing I have had to work on. Sometimes when I get frustrated, I come off as a little talking down, I guess. And I don't mean to do it, but I've done it with Steph a few times, and I could see like when I do it, I'm like, oh fuck, I'm totally like the way my tone is, and that's everything. And that's one thing I've worked on a lot this year. So if like Steph's in a funk, or if she's being crabby for whatever reason, or if I'm being crabby, we're good about it. Like, she can be like, hey Justin, like, are you having a bad day? Because you seem like kind of like a dick right now. You know what I mean? But say it in a funny way to where I'm like, holy shit, I'm being a total dick right now. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be a dick anymore. Like, let's go do something fun. And you get on this cool ninja level where you can just squash it. Like, and it's easy to do, especially in our work environments, people. And this is what you guys all need to understand. Our jobs and whatever it is, even what I do is, if I have a client who comes in who's had a shitty day and all he did was complain the entire session, I might take that home and that energy home with me without ever realizing it. And maybe someone cut me off on the way home from my client, and that pissed me off. And then I get home and, and my wife brings up the fact that I have to make so much money to pay off this bill by this time because, it's a big fucking bill. And I'm like, there it is. That's like the fucking sick of fucking working. Fucking, we work too much. We need more time for ourselves. And that's not it. That's not it at all. It's the fact that I just carried this energy. And so all these things are really important to just be aware of and understanding, like, how this all really works. It's neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Definitely.
Let me, and Steph being in, I'll get right into it.
In India. Yeah. So obviously, like, you guys are super close, and she's been gone for a while, and Dayla and I have talked about it, and she's like, I don't know what the fuck I would do,
26 days.
Yeah, vice versa. And so I wanted to talk about, like, how you've been doing, like how you guys have been able to survive and get through this, because obviously Dayla and I are not alone, and watching you guys being like, well, could we do that? So
you know what it is. So Steph is, I think, normally like that. I think she knows and enjoys time for herself, and I kind of already knew that about Steph, but we've been together for 4 years, and like the longest she's ever been away was maybe a week before to go visit her mom. Other than that, this is the longest she's ever been. We've been separated. Time span. It's also the longest, believe it or not, that I've been alone myself, probably since I was like almost like 15 years old.
Which isn't bad. Like, those are good moments.
Those are good moments.
I'm sure get into it.
Sorry about the dogs. Can you hear them?
A little bit, but not as much as when the cops came to the house. I know, so right? It's all good.
It's all good. Where was I going? Where was I going with it?
You'd been the first time you had been alone.
Oh yeah, and I did the math in the back of my head. It's like since I started dating seriously, I was probably 15 years old, high school sweetheart for 4 or 5 years. I was maybe single for a month and a half, and then I met my next girlfriend, who I dated for 3.5, 4 years, and then I was maybe single for maybe like 4 months, and then I met another girl who I was dating for 5 years, and then I was single for maybe 2 months, 3 months, and then I was with Steph now for 4 years. So, and the time from 15 to 34, I think I was in a relationship for a long-term relationship for 16 years, and maybe single for a year of them. So this was not joking. Yeah, like, I'm not even joking. This was the first time in my life where I was more or so, I don't want to use the term alone, but like without the presence of another human being consistently. And that was at first very trying for me. Not going into it, I didn't have a thought into it, because I usually don't think far enough into the future to worry about Steph leaving.
which is probably good
which is
in terms
great.
of staying
But I do
present,
that by
staying
accident.
mindful.
I do that by accident. I think that's just how I was born. Like I don't think about that stuff too much. So when she left, it wasn't until like 4 days after she left where I found myself with more anxiety.
Oh shit!
Like holy shit! Like who am I gonna talk to? And this is what's really neat is I learned to talk to myself. And I realized that I work through my problems way faster, or whatever I'm trying to learn or evolve from, way faster, confining within myself, having my own thoughts, as opposed to maybe venting or talking out loud even to Steph, and using Steph a lot of times. And it's great to use Steph because she can give me feedback, but a lot of times you do work through things much better, which is a form of meditation. Yet again, is just working through things yourself and your own thoughts. So I was forced to sit kind of by myself in my house,
Right.
for moments. People were at work. There was times where I'm like totally like for days, for like a whole week, like I would be completely by myself every single day. And at first I was like, what do I do with myself? And then I realized like you can work through a lot of shit just by having thought
it's
after
great.
thought. Yeah. And again, it's all about being present. At first it took me to realize how to be present, because before Steph would pull me out from my phone, believe it or not. Well, being alone, I was being on my phone more. And then being on my phone more was causing me to have more anxiety due to the feeds from Facebook.
Right. And the content that you're reading,
content that I'm
at,
reading.
what we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. And it goes even deeper, like, because of what me and you do, I guess, for society and to help. When we do that, we also tend to feel responsible for people, as weird as that sounds.
It's true.
It's true. Yeah. And like, so when you see somebody not get it, or you see someone struggle, that's the kind of feed that I see. I feel bad. I feel sad for that person because they're not getting it. They're struggling. It's not like it's somebody posting stupid shit and I'm following that person. I'm seeing someone kind of struggle, and they put a message up that's kind of talking through the picture, but it's asking for help, or it can't figure shit out. You know what I mean? But like, so I see feeds like this, and then I go into deep thought by myself, and it was causing me to have that anxiety. And it was crazy to have the understanding to like, whoa, I need to put my phone down. And that was a breakthrough for myself.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah, by being alone.
Yep.
And then I realized the importance of being alone.
Well, because you're not alone. Like you're with yourself.
Yeah, you're with yourself. Exactly. So like, I also realized how important it is for human beings as themselves to take time for themselves. And it can be for however long you need it to be. Like this month by myself, I've missed Steph dearly, but I've also am extremely happy for Steph that she got to do, because she's doing what I'm doing, but she chose to do it.
Yeah, and she's having an amazing time. Yeah, like those photos and stuff. It's unreal.
And her mental breakthroughs for herself have been amazing. They've been beautiful. Like the text messages that I've gotten from her, it's so cool to see how fast she evolved. And she evolved like within days of being there. It was wicked. Like her brain was just evolving, like learning about herself, loving herself even more, giving a fuck even less. It was in a great way. You know what I mean? It's just like, it was so neat. And then I caught myself going at first the other way. At first I was like having more anxiety because I didn't know what to do. And then she said something really cool to me, because it goes back to feeling the idea of feeling responsible sometimes for once you build up, not a following, but people that kind of rely on you sometimes for motivation. And I like that, but I don't want to be the person who's trying to be a leader. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want to be a leader. I want to just be Justin and just lead by example, but not lead by example. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to try to lead by example, because then I'm in the illusion of the world that sucks sometimes. Does that make sense? Like,
I think it goes back to, if I'm understanding correctly, and this is how it's resonating with me, like Tony Robbins, for instance, and his Netflix documentary, I'm Not Your Guru. Every sort of spiritual enlightening book I've read, they're like, as soon as someone's like, I have the answers, follow me, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah,
and I think, at least to me, what you're getting to is like, I'm not that guy, but like, if you want to, watch what I do, and if it helps you, great, but I'm not broadcasting that you should do this.
Exactly. And I think for a bit with the more of the audience that obtains and they do listen to like whatever it is we're saying, we for some reason feel the responsibility becomes like this real thing. And it is real, but you know what I mean? It becomes like the pressure is not real. The pressure, and then when you see someone not get it, that pressure of feeling bad isn't real, but you feel it. And that was starting to take a toll on me, because then I felt responsible for this community to feel better. And if they didn't catch on, or if they didn't feel good, I would feel the effect. And that was, I didn't realize it, but it was like this slow taper of feeling a little bit more shitty.
And it took you being alone to recognize it.
It took me being alone to recognize it. How crazy. That's like the craziest, coolest thing ever, is realizing the importance of working through your shit. And normally I would work through it, but I worked for it way faster, being by myself. And that's another thing I wanted to get into, is like people, like you asked, like, how am I doing without Steph? I think one thing too is most people, when they think of two people that are together and they take a trip separately, they think something's wrong within the relationship. And most people think that. Most people think that I'm miserable without Steph. They're like, oh man, you must be so miserable, and like, oh, this, that, and the other. Or they think that something was wrong, and why did she have to go out there? Is everything okay? They don't understand. It's like, oh no, like, as a human being, and Steph realized this before I did, you need time for yourself. Like, you need time to work on your own personal goals. It has nothing to do with the relationship. And I think this is a huge step for a lot of people in relationships, like even like suggesting the other person, like, hey, why don't you take a day for yourself, or even like 2 days for yourself, like if you need it, just, you know, you can always do it to work on your shit. And I don't take it personally, because I don't carry those insecurities of you needing to get away. Because most people would probably think, like, if your girl wanted to leave for a month, you're like, does she like you anymore? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
and I think that is the conditioning, because that's what we've been led to believe in terms of growing up, that, oh, if people aren't around each other, there's a problem. But I completely agree, man. Yeah. Dale and I talk about it all the time, because she's a nurse, and a labor and delivery nurse, and so her schedule, like, I'm consistent. I'm Monday through Friday, and so I always have Saturday, Sunday off from work most of the time, unless I'm on a trip for work. And Dayla sometimes will have those weekends off and we get to chill, but every now and then she'll work a Saturday or work a Sunday, or sometimes work both Saturday and Sunday. And we love each other, just like you and Steph love each other, and we prefer to be around each other, but we always do the same thing of backing up and saying, like, well, this is so good, because, you know, there's a random Wednesday where she's off and I'm at work, and we both get to do our own work. We both get to go down our own rabbit holes. And in terms of thinking, you know, kind of what you're talking about, like getting away from the phone and thinking about our lives and having those epiphanies, it's the same reason people have those shower epiphanies when they're in the shower, because they're fucking alone and they don't have any inputs, and they can actually think. Like, even Warren Buffett, who's a mega investor, one of the richest people on the planet, he like sets aside 10 minutes every day to just think, and he just sits in a chair and doesn't do anything, and he just like lets the thoughts come to him and kind of work through issues or problems, etc. And that alone time is very counterintuitive, because we don't want to take it, but when we do, we can find so much power in it.
Yeah, I didn't realize it. It was really cool until it was almost forced on, because I immediately would just come home and just vent or explain my thoughts through Steph, and she was helping on a lot of things, but a lot of times it's also not like fair that I would do that. You know what I mean?
All the time, right?
Yeah, and like, it's not like she ever complained about it, but I realized, like, it's not fair to do that, to bring maybe your thought processes, because a lot of times there's stuff you're trying to work through. They're not the most positive things, or they're not the most like greatest things ever. So like, the time alone is huge. So I think for people out there, like, try it. I think that's why meditation is what it is. It's time alone within your thoughts to work through your things. And that's another thing that we'll get into, is the different forms, and I think different ways people can meditate, I think, is very vast, and most people don't realize it. I think it's one way. I think they need to dress up like a yogi. Yep, and they need to go sit in Indian position, and their palms faced up for an hour, and they need to play some music and light some incense, and there's got to be some hippie teacher in front of them, like making some weird fucking breathing noises, you know, and working on their shit. And you have to realize, like, you don't have to do that. It's great. You can be in the shower. You can be in the shower. You can be playing the drums. You can be weight training. You can be sitting by yourself. And it's funny is like, I realized this smoking DMT, that I didn't need the ritual. Before, when I smoked DMT, I would make sure all the dogs were up, worried about distractions, needed to play some sort of music. set everything up, make sure I was comfortable, have everything prepared, but almost to where I created the anxiety before I did my meditation ceremony with the DMT. I created like this thing. I made it way bigger than what it is. And then I realized on my way home one time I was feeling really like awesome, like really, really like enlightened, very, very happy, like just driving home, good tunes. And I was like, man, I feel like meditating almost, and I really never thought about meditating. I would either have breakthroughs during cardio or through training or through conversation or thought process. But I never thought about it as meditating. And then I was like, well, now I'm going to because DMT is like the highest form of meditation. So I was like, well, I'm going to go home and smoke some DMT and I'm going to meditate because that's how that's what I thought was the only way to meditate. But as I was going home, I was like, man, it's midday. Steph's home. The dogs are out. There's going to be all these distractions. And right then I realized, like, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm going to do? Just to prove a point, I'm going to leave all the blinds open. I'm going to leave the dogs out. I'm going to do it in my living room. Steph can walk in and out as she please. And so when I set it all up, I even said, like, hey, listen, I'm going to smoke a little bit of DMT. I'm going to just work through some stuff and meditate. I'm like, don't worry about being quiet. Don't worry about the dogs. Do your thing. And because I'm not going to be here anyway, I'm going to have my thought. You know what I mean? Like, and it was huge. It was huge to realize that. I think to not put so much stress on making it perfect for you to work through your thoughts was a huge step for me, because then you can almost like do it anywhere. It can happen a lot more often. I think that's huge. Have you seen the Lord of the Rings movies? I'm sure you have. I have, but yeah, so I've seen them. Yeah. Okay, go through it. The reason why I bring it up, and I think media sometimes has little clues, and this relates to exactly what you're talking about. So for those Lord of the Ring nerds out there, Fellowship of the Ring, the Bullrog is chasing Gandalf and the Fellowship, and they're kind of stuck. And they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Literally, they have this like huge fucking monster out one door, and they're trapped in this room. And what does Gandalf do? Homie meditates. Like he fucking posts up on a rock, and he's got like a little pipe, kind of like what you guys have, the long pipe. And he just sits there with his eyes closed, just kind of like puffing on the pipe. And all the hobbits and everybody else is running around like crazy, trying to like, oh, what do we do? And Gandalf's just meditating. And that's like, that's the most noise ever. It's like life and death for these people. Yeah. And he's like, well, let me just sit for a sec and like figure my shit out. Yeah, with a game plan instead of freaking the fuck out. Yeah, great example. It's really cool. And what's funny was my DMT trip was all about understanding that distractions don't even exist. You make them exist. So it was like in my vision, it was like this solid line, and distractions was like this like flying arrow coming towards the solid line, right? And then it would hit the solid line and like really cause destruction, and I could feel it within my meditation. And then I realized, I'm like, it shouldn't cause that. It shouldn't have that. Just let it go through it. Just let it go through the line, like gracefully. Like, so here, and then all of a sudden here comes again this distraction line, and it just flows through. And like, there's no such thing as distraction. It's just how we view these things. It's just how we interpret them and take them in and process them. They don't have to be upsetting. Like, because it'd be to the point where like my dog would bark, like right as I'm about to fall asleep. I'm like, oh, motherfucker, I could kill that fucking thing right now. Like right as I was about to fall asleep. Yeah, right. And I'm like, I don't want to feel like that ever. Because then I can't sleep for 15, 20 minutes because I'm worried about the fucking dog barking again. Like, even now my dogs are barking. Even right now my dogs are barking. I'm like, I feel like killing those motherfuckers if they keep fucking barking. But then I'm like, chill the fuck out. Like, it's fine. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit. Isn't that funny? Like, I can use an example right now. My dogs are barking like crazy, and I'm like, I'm going to kill Carl if he doesn't shut the fuck up, because I'm worried about my listeners, if they can hear something, worried about if it's interrupting your train of thought. And the only thing it's doing is it's interrupting my train of thought and me being able to listen to you. And it's funny how I can even make that happen right now. And it's just like coming to a sense like it doesn't have to happen. Like, we can control it. It might be quaint to people listening to the podcast. They're like, oh, they're Justin's dogs again, and they just kind of like are this background noise. Dude, I completely agree. What's helped me is in meditation is the sounds that we hear in everyday life. So like, I know you live in a pretty busy metropolitan area. I live downtown Austin. Yeah, exactly. And so I'll crack the door when I'm meditating to let those sounds in because it's practice to just let those go. And then if people can equate sounds to thoughts, it's like, oh, there's the garbage truck outside. Cool. And let it go. Oh, there's a honk. Let it go. There's an emergency car. Let it go.
and then use that as practice
Yep.
for when you have that arrow, so to speak, of the thought or insecurity that comes in, like just let it go. It's just a noise.
Exactly. Yeah, it's huge. And back to the many forms of meditation, guys who are listening, if you're looking to learn, find what works for you. If it's going to a meditation class and doing the breathing techniques and doing that kind of stuff, you can do that. If it's sitting at home by yourself because you feel more comfortable, that's okay too. If it's taking a trip like Steph did, to remove herself from the elements completely, to isolate herself, to live in like a simpler, more humbling environment, to pull themselves back to be able to think through things. Like, you can do that. There's some people that need to do a symbolistic journey, as in like climbing a mountain.
So to that point, and this is a completely like huge other topic we can get into at some point, but it's the hero's journey, quote unquote. And we as humans have had these hardwired into our psyche since day one. So like think about all the great sort of tales from Gilgamesh, which is way back in the day, from like Sumeria and Babylon, to the Odyssey, which is, Homer and the Greek and the Trojan War and that sort of thing, up to comic books. And so, we were talking about cable and Marvel earlier. Like, think about, Batman. When he was training, growing up and like a young adult, he fucking disappeared and like left Gotham for 7 years and then came back as who he was. Superman has the Fortress of Solitude. Dude like disappears for a little bit and then comes back. And so we have these clues in our media and in our culture, and we just need to pay more attention to them because they're so helpful.
It's funny how much of it is in movies, and but you never see it at all. Like, the whole Matrix is the Matrix. Like, they're talking about society and how it is to a T. Like, a lot of movies do really hone in on the stuff that we're talking about. A lot more than you think. Like, a lot
all
more
of
than
them
you
do,
think.
yeah.
It's pretty cool. We got into what pulls us from being present a little bit. I wanted to tap into that a little bit more, in how people can actually work through maybe, I guess.
Real quick before we get into that, I just wanted to back up for a sec. When we were talking about being cool with being alone, and it's okay sometimes if couples are separated. You said that a lot of times you lean on Steph when you come home or you have ideas or whatever. And I've noticed in the past month, like, Justin and I text all the time. You and I are communicating a bunch. But recently, since Steph has been gone, it's like meatier. And in terms of like, there's more weight to it. So like, you'll text me kind of what you're thinking, and I'll review it and kind of add my thoughts, etc. And so there's other positives that come out of this. So like, even though Steph isn't there, you were like, oh shit, I need somebody else to help me out. And then you're making me feel super special because I'm like, hey babe, like Justin just texted me this cool like stream of consciousness, and I get to dissect it and then like send him back my thoughts. And so that's the other thing that comes out of it, because people are so afraid of being alone. But then you like you got to make my day a few times. And so when someone's alone,
and I can also like realize I can also bounce off other people than just Steph. I can and you know what I mean, and have their process and stuff like that. It was huge for me. It's my biggest thing too. Is always afraid of grammar.
No, you're doing great, man. It's fantastic. But yeah, it makes people feel better. Like Nick Antico, who I know, he follows both of us, and we follow him. Like I'd been working on my lower body, and so all of a sudden, like my butt got bigger, and dude wears board shorts all the time. So I was like, hey bro, like my ass got bigger. Like, what board shorts do you wear? And he was like, oh, I got you. Like, try this.
That's hilarious. That's awesome.
And I know when people have hit me up for like meditation and be like, hey, I'm getting into this, or I want to try smoking. What should I do? And so you kind of make other people's days, so to speak.
For sure. Yeah, man. Well, you helped a lot. Like, it helped me a lot because Steph was like unavailable, like literally he was just unavailable 12 and a half hours ahead. And then so it was great to be able to bounce my ideas off of you and like run them by you and get your input. So it was huge for me. What I wanted to get into is this documentary I also watched for a little bit, and again, it's like one of those situations where I always feel a certain way, and usually a documentary or like a book or something just like redefines like my thoughts were kind of like correct. The Samadhi doc, have you watched it? The one I posted?
I've not watched it, but I did.
It's the best one I've seen so far.
And I read up on it. It's terms of like the wheel of karma, and sort of we're burning off our sort of like negative energy, so to speak. And then that samadhi is sort of the pinnacle of that, right?
It's cool is like basically samadhi is being present. That's all it is. But it's being present without trying to be present, because therefore you're still in the illusion if you're trying to be present. So I love
how you said the illusion too.
Yeah.
We got to get into that too.
Well, that's like, for instance, like me picking up the weights in the morning. You've seen a few of my videos where I'm picking up weights in the morning. And when I first started doing that, I just wanted to do it. It was a good, it felt good to do, to help out. I did it just to help out. There goes my dogs again. They're
endearing
ones today.
Everybody loves them. They're great.
They're just owning that fence out there. Where was I? Oh, so I go to pick up the weights, and at first I feel great about it, but then like a few weeks go by, and I feel like almost like disrespected. Isn't that funny? I create the illusion like whoever's leaving these weights out is just so rude, and they don't get it. And then I start making not videos to show that I'm mad, but at first I start making videos like, hey guys, like try to bring in awareness, right? That was like step number one, like try to make it more aware, like we can all help pick up weights, like this is shitty, like don't do it to these poor cleaning ladies. And then it would keep happening, and then I would like post another video, and then like people would then write me saying how much they liked that I pick up the weights, but they were also angry in their message, like that's fucking bullshit, like people leaving their fucking weights around, like
that you have to pick it up.
They'd be so mad that for me, which is beautiful and endearing, but their energy would get going. So then I would then start going in the morning.
Yeah, these motherfuckers. Like, I can't believe it. You're right.
Exactly. It's amazing. So like I would start going in the morning being like, fuck, is all these assholes left out weights again? And then I would start being like, listen, if I'm gonna choose to pick up weights in the morning, if I'm going to choose personally to wake up and do it, I'm the only one that's choosing to do it. I can't be mad at it. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing that goes into relationships. That's the same thing that goes into your job. That's the same thing that goes into everyday things that you do. If you are mad at whatever it is you're doing, you have a choice not to fucking do it. If you're unhappy in a relationship, don't be in the fucking relationship. That's your choice. If you're unhappy at your job, work towards a new job. If you're fucking unhappy with your gym, go to a fucking new gym. Like you don't have a right to be unhappy. You don't. You don't have a choice. Like there's a difference, but like I said, there's a difference between being unfortunate and being unhappy. An unfortunate situation is you don't have a fucking gym at all. You know what I mean? And that's what you're stuck with. Like the fact that you have a gym and it's messy that's just what it is. Like, don't be unhappy. Like just deal with it if you want to deal with it or not. And,
I think that's perspectives. Like there's a meme that I've seen floating around Instagram where it's like somebody, in a beat up car pointing to a guy in a Ferrari being like, oh man, that guy's so lucky. And then there's the guy on a bus stop and he's looking at the guy in the beat up jalopy and he's like, man, that guy's so lucky he's got a car. And then there's a guy looking from a window who's in a wheelchair down at the guy taking a bus and he's like, man, that's so lucky he gets to take the bus. And so it's all perspective. Also, I'm sure the cleaning staff fucking loves you, and you've had them in the videos and you're going around being like, let me try to help you people.
It's a nice gesture for them. It really is, because it sucks watching these little ladies pick up weights. I'm not actually, and I realized like, all right, well, I'm not going to film the dirty gym anymore. I decided not to do that. I was like, because every time I filmed the dirty gym at first it was to motivate, and it really was. It wasn't to film for that I was upset, but it slowly evolved into me filming like fucking pieces of shit ain't fucking, and then everybody would jump on it, and then you know what I mean, it became like this weird energy of like people being mad that people didn't pick up the gym, and those people aren't ever they don't even know like that we're feeling this way, the people making the mess. It's so funny, like we just like manifest all of the energy and create and live in the illusion. That's the problem. So it goes back to if you're trying to be present in the present, you're still in the illusion. If I'm going to go pick up weights to be nice, but then get angry about it, I am now living in the illusion. You get what I mean? Like so I think it's a huge lesson that I learned personally. If I'm going to post and help people and try to motivate people, and then I see that they don't get it and I feel bad for it, I'm living in the illusion. And that's one thing Steph says. She's like, listen, and which was great. This is like 5 days of her being there. She goes, listen, I was like, you can't try to tell people what to do. You can't teach people what to do. All you can do is be you. You can't try to lead by example, because then you're in the illusion. You just lead by example.
People will Yes, and people will only follow when they're ready. Or people will come to their own conclusions when they're ready. And that was
she just said like they want to follow the follow. If they don't, they don't, and that's okay. She's like, and I was like, oh my god, you just took 10,000 pounds off my shoulders. I'm like, that's the best even answer.
Like the videos, and I know I texted you this at one point, but the videos motivated me. So here I am picking up and racking weights at my level.
Yeah, you're doing your thing.
Yeah, so much so that I'm pulling weights off. People are like, no, wait, like I'm coming back.
I
to
did that
machine.
shit too. Like I'm still using that. Like, oh my bad.
I was like, my bad. No, and I would say the same thing. I was like, but these fucking assholes in here, they leave them, and the guy's like, man, I know. So I feel you in terms of the negativity around that. But you were motivating me, and I'm sure other people to clean up.
The goal.
The goal
is just lead by example, though. And I think the trick is to not try to lead by example. And that's the thing too. Is like we can use like some great leaders. For example, like we can use Martin Luther King, but it sucks he had to be that leader. You know what I mean? He couldn't live his life. He actually chose to be in the illusion because he cared about people so much. He chose to be in the illusion of that shit to where he was shot. You get what I mean? Like we don't want to be in the people that are like those leaders, they're not choosing to be leaders. It's almost like they kind of fall into it by mistake, and then like they become responsible for it in a way. And it's a beautiful, moving thing. But in the end, we don't want that. We want people to just be themselves, and other people pick up off that and like, oh, okay, cool, I'll do that too. Like, I'm not gonna tell you to pick up trash while we're walking on the street. I'm just gonna pick up trash.
Right.
You get what I mean?
It's like, yes, completely. It's like that guy Gary Renard I was talking about earlier, his books, and that's what cued me onto it early on in terms of the illusion, quote unquote, is that none of this matters. And I think you and I both buy into and believe that this is not the first rodeo we have on this planet in these bodies. We're sort of souls that are timeless. And if we think of life that way, then why get stressed? Why get anxious about things that aren't real? Also, if we look at it scientifically, we were talking about earlier, those synapses in the brains, the chemicals in the brains, like that's not real. It's just a chemical in the brain that's like cueing you to think a certain way or to feel a certain way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's hard too, especially if you love yourself more and you're a kind person, you kind of care about shit more. Like it kind of goes hand in hand, which is great, but also sucks until you learn how to do it properly, until you learn how to like understand of how it all works, like how to take this and not take this. And that's the hard part, because I remember when I became more aware of like wanting to love myself more, which then returned into like treating people better, with then be treating the earth better, and then food better. It's like this great awakening, but at the same time, it's this very also surreal sadness that 99.9% of the world doesn't see it, and they live there. So it's like this weird first enlightenment, and then like kind of like, wow, this world kind of sucks. And then you're like, oh, yeah, it's kind of cool when you meet nice people, and then they don't get it, and then like they suck. And then you go through it again.
Have you seen that meme with Drake? And there's two panels side by side, and one he's like partying, and it says something like, when you're out getting it, and then the next panel next to it, he's like got his arms folded and he looks super sad, and it's like, but then you remember world poverty and global warming and like all this stuff.
It's true,
and
though.
So it is
that
high and low
thing, and I think that gets into like what goes on in the world too. I think we've touched on that many times. It's like you don't need to make the post about let's pray for this or let's do that. It literally is just be a cool human.
Right.
And that way you also don't take on the responsibilities, the false responsibilities that like we automatically take, I think, a lot of times, because we're good people. Like, you want to help people, you want to see them successful, and that's a great characteristic, but you don't want to take on their burden of what they come with. You know what I mean? So that's been a challenging part for me, to be honest. Like, and it's kind of what I've learned in the month that I was by myself. Going back into that. So it's kind of neat to like recap on all of this, and then also have the assistance from Steph fucking being able to tell me certain things that, like, man, just took weight off, the manifested weight off my shoulders. It's really remarkable.
Well, and we think, what's helped me out get through that is to not be so anxious and not feel so badly when I look at the rest of the world, or even, in my little world. Spiritually and thinking about it metaphysically, this is all just a game. Like we're all just having this meat body experience to learn more about what it's like and to kind of shed the ego, etc. If one looks at it from a religious context, it's the same fucking thing. So if you look at from Christianity, a Christian angle rather, it all works out in the end, right? Like God defeats the devil and we're all in paradise and it all works out. And so I'm sure that's consistent around other religions as well. You know, sort of Eastern ones are like we all become enlightened, we have nirvana, etc. So it's like, why go in that spin cycle of negativity or anxiety, etc., and feel shitty when you know it's going to be fine in the end anyway?
Yeah, that's true.
Like my dad uses this saying sometimes. He's like, it'll all be fine in the end, and if it's not the end, then don't worry about it.
Exactly. That's so true. That's a good one. Yeah, I like that. Did you want to get into Feed Front Magazine?
Yeah, so
I'm not familiar with it. I noticed you wanted to talk about that a little bit. You want to elaborate?
Oh yeah, well that was I know you saw it. That was the magazine I was featured in.
That was the one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, my article, and it fits what we were talking about earlier in terms of being able to meditate anywhere and being mindful anywhere. And that was sort of the article. And Feedfront Magazine is it's an affiliate marketing trade magazine, so that's what I do in my 9 to 5. It's
awesome.
Coupon and deal sites, etc. And that's sort of the premier magazine. And so it was really cool. And I've gotten a lot of love from the community this week over being featured in it. And it was an article that I felt hadn't been talked about because usually it's very much focused on what we do in our work lives and technology, et cetera. And I wanted to put out there like, hey, this is how we can all help ourselves be a little bit happier in what we do. And what we were talking about earlier is exactly what I wrote about. So it's like, yeah, you know, the yogis in Tibet or like the hippies in your town or your local community may say you need to meditate an hour a day or you need to set aside your own little space, et cetera. And my article was just pointing out that really, you know, you just need 5-10 minutes a day. You need in the shower, you need when you're brushing your teeth, like just stay focused, stay present. And that will vastly improve people's lives amid the clutter, because most of the people I work with, man, like my boss, he takes off a lot of times at like 3 to go pick up his girls from some activity or take them from school to some sporting event. And then he like hops online again when he gets at home and like bangs out a few more emails. And we all have those things going on in our lives to various degrees. And so how can we make a space for ourselves from time to time? Kind of like what you were talking about, sitting on the couch if Steph's around.
Is actually making the time for yourselves. That's important, like scheduling your time in. I think that's a huge step. That's actually great advice. Is scheduling that time for yourself every week or every day. Like, I kind of did that by accident by just not liking feeling rushed in the morning. So I got up an hour earlier to give myself more time. So
exactly,
little things like that, like pay attention to how you feel. Again, just I think being aware of the actual thought process of setting up a schedule to have time for yourself and not have any distractions is step one. It's phenomenal.
And I love that you did that because I'm the same way. Like I hate being rushed. And so I love getting up a little bit earlier because it's like, I mean, you're getting up an hour earlier, which is great. A lot of times I'll get up like 15, 20 minutes. It's like, what is that at the end of the day? Like I could sleep for another 15 minutes or I could get up and like not be as rushed and be more comfortable with my day.
It's true. I wanted to also touch base real quick. Like it kind of goes with what you're saying. Like you don't need to necessarily go and do the full ceremonies and the full thing. Like you could take that 5 minutes of your day, because that also plays into the illusion, guys. If you listen to what I'm saying, if you are, say, John, and then all of a sudden you learn how to meditate, and then all of a sudden you grow dreads and you are wearing the full hippie clothes and you're going to the thing. I mean, that's great. That's step one, is that you're learning like what this is about and what you need time for yourself. But you taking on the character of the hippie, or the character of being awakened, or the character that society fits you in, that you put yourself in, you are still living in the illusion.
Right. Yep. That's great.
That's a very, very important thing to understand. Like you're still not you yet. You're still wearing a mask. You're still playing a role. You're still playing a role. And if you do have dreads and you like meditating, you might not be playing the role.
Good for you.
Good for you.
Keep doing your thing.
But I mean, if you just look at the general the population, the way they do things, it goes back to this is what I was trying to get into before. Thank you for full wrapping the thought. Being the bodybuilder, you don't need to be the bodybuilder to be a bodybuilder. You get what I mean? You don't need to be a yogi to be meditating. You don't need to have this to do this. You can be you without creating the mask of playing the role of what you think you are supposed to be. And that's goes back into that bodybuilder talk. Like, when you don't need to be a bodybuilder the entire day to let people know that you are a bodybuilder. You can do all of it. You don't need to play the bodybuilder role because you're still living the illusion. You're still not you. That's like you don't need to wear that shirt. You can wear whatever shirt you want to show off your muscles. You don't have to be a part of that. You could do this. It's the same thing when it comes to meditation, the different levels of meditation. Now, saying that, most people need to become the I guess the personality of the whatever it is they're trying to fit into. You know what I mean? Like, they see that and they're like, oh, okay, I got to do it like that. And I think that's normal. So I'm not bashing that. Like, you know, for you to join the meditation course and do that and whatever it is to maybe first become enlightened or aware of me, or maybe the tricks that you can use down the road might be at these classes. You know what I mean? Or the gym, like maybe the trainers who belong to this type of thing, they can teach you, but then you can take what they teach you and make your own thing. You get what I mean? And instead of
I think it's identity. Don't lose your identity in all this shit.
Exactly. Don't lose your identity when you become a bodybuilder. Don't lose your identity when you're trying to become a meditation. Don't lose your identity when you get in a relationship with other human beings. Like, you don't need to become that person when you're in a relationship with that person. You just be who you are. And that person is who they are. And it's the same thing with almost everything that you do. It's the same thing with the car you buy. Like, why are you buying this car? It's like that you post. Like, who are you and how do you want to represent yourself? Like, like, where do you, like, that's a huge thing, I think. And if you can do that daily, that is full samadhi. Then you're in full flow. You're completely present all the time. You meditate, like, in your car while you smoke a joint, like I do right before I go into the gym by accident. Like, I don't plan on doing it. Sometimes I don't do it. Sometimes I'm doing it on the treadmill, and I'll get a full, like, body high from my thought processes, and my skin lights up, and I'll get goosebumps, and like, oh, there it was. There was a releaser. There it is. So there's so many beautiful ways you could do it. And again, like, some it's harder for others, but realize, don't lose your identity. Like, make it yours, and whatever it is that you do.
I think a good tip that's relevant for this, I completely agree with everything you're saying, and I think something that's tangible that might help people is Cory Booker. He's a senator from New Jersey. He's like a young senator. He was the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, really cleaned up the place. And I listened to him recently on a Tim Ferriss podcast, and he went to Stanford on a football scholarship. And he said that he wasn't the best student and he wanted to get better at being a football player. And so he said there was a guy who was like, you know, all-American, everything at Stanford at the time. And he said he mirrored the guy's work ethic. And he said even down to, like, the guy would wear a towel out one side of his back. And so Cory would do the exact same thing. And he was like, when practice would end, a lot of people would go to the training table to get, like, taped up, to get massaged out, etc. But there was an elite group that went and kept lifting and kept working. And so he followed their lead and did that. In the same way, when he would go into class, he was like, I need to get straight A's, or I need to get B's, etc. What are the kids doing that are the smart ones? And so he's like, oh, they're sitting in the front of the class. Oh, they're going to visit their TA afterwards. And so he didn't become those people.
Right.
He wasn't the all-American, et cetera, but he was, like, looking and being aware what
That's
we talked about
of
what other people were doing, and then adding that to his repertoire to become a better person.
For sure. A great example is how people are like, how did you learn for what you did? Well, I hired certain trainers, and then I took what I think was great, and I hired the best trainers because they're the best, just like you said you did. Like, and that's how we learn, is like working with other people and reading from other people and their experiences. And then you take those experiences and you see if they jive with you, or they see if they work with you,
completely.
or if that learns with you. Because we all learn things differently. We all see things, perceive things differently. And that's what I think too, is like, yeah, see if those tools work, because it worked for those people and it may work for you. So that's a really good thing to add in there. It's huge.
I love this, by the way. Yeah, this whole talk is. I need to write this down. Like, pay attention to where this is in the minutes, because I think this is really important to share with people. So use those motivations, but don't get lost in who you are, so to speak.
What was I gonna say?
Excuse me.
think that's pretty much it. Anything else you want to add?
There was one thing really quickly, and this is completely out of context and random, but bamboo toilet paper.
I just saw that. At first, I was like, bamboo toilet paper. I'm like, oh, environmental purposes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the first thing that came to my head. I was like, why do you want to? Oh, environmental purposes. This makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I know you and I try to live that way.
For
and
sure. I think that's
in
genius. The way you should live is for your environment. That's pretty much it. It's easy.
And
tell us about it.
Me, it was, so it wasn't even me. It was Dayla.
Okay.
She ordered bamboo toilet paper, and I'm like a big fan of really soft toilet paper because I don't want my ass to bleed, and have that. So I was really against it because I've tried other sort of natural toilet papers or better for the environment toilet papers before. She got the bamboo ones. They're fucking fantastic.
They're great.
I asked her, like, hey, this is great. What's the deal behind it? And apparently bamboo is not dissimilar to marijuana and hemp. And it's like just grows like a weed. And so they've looked at it. The company that does it is like, if we're going to use toilet paper, like, why are we using trees that take, decades to grow when we can use the bamboo and it's about the same? And so I know you and I try to live our lives to the highest good and support the planet, et cetera. And so for people listening that want to do that, bamboo toilet paper.
Dude, it's genius. Well, we'll definitely check it out because I'm a baby wipe guy. Maybe we'll try to find some bamboo baby wipes.
Bamboo baby wipes. I'm the same way. I got my baby wipes still here, but then we got the bamboo toilet paper.
That's great though. That's that's the stuff that we need to keep moving forward. It's a shame that it takes so slow. It'll be like another 200 years before everybody's on bamboo toilet paper. It'll be.
So I do the same thing, but then what helps me feel better so I don't get depressed by what that fact.
That fact right is that you'll be dead and the forest will be gone before they realize that
they need to use bamboo toilet paper. But if it takes 200 years in the grand scheme of things, that's not very long.
It's not very long. That's true. Dude, that was fun conversation. That was fun. Anything else? We're good. I wanted to also mention the clothing apparel guys. I know a lot of you guys are waiting. May 8th, I've been pretty repetitive about it on the social media. May 8th, everything drops, guys tanks, girls tanks. We're looking at...
I'm super stoked.
Yeah, we're looking at girls leggings, girls sports bras too, very shortly once we find the material and the proper seamstress, because we want to get them done really, really well. We don't want to just order it from another side apparel company and then print some shit on it. We want to really make these nice and custom, especially the leggings and sports bras for you girls. So those are something me and Steph are looking into and really excited about. Guys, the short shorts, the training shorts, we're going to come out with some of those, and also some joggers.
I love the logo.
Yeah, we got a bunch of new ones now. Yeah, I think we have 4, maybe 5 different logos, and the newest one is really cool with the palm tree. That's one of my favorite ones. Steph had a lot to do that. She's been pretty creative with the logo. And then the other one she came out with, the 70s one with the rainbow stripes with the bubbly built. Did you see that one? It's almost like the old aviator colors. That's my favorite one so far. I can't wait to put that on a t-shirt or a really nice hoodie. That'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, we're excited about the clothing apparel and see what we can do with it. Also, guys, I know a lot of you guys were wondering why I didn't go to India with Steph. Originally, I was supposed to go with Steph in the first week that she left to do 3 seminars in India to discuss kind of like how we go about our business, what we do for a living, how do we go about staying motivated, and food and health and nutrition, even a little bit of bodybuilding, personal training, and like how we got into our business. That was basically what our seminars will be about, but a little bit more in depth too, because we're going to get into the importance of food and how meditation and all these things that help us be our variation of success in life. And that we could share that with you guys out there, and hopefully that's what we're going to end up doing. So I actually hopefully go back out in November, or go there.
Okay, cool.
In November with
and then Steph goes. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we'll go for like a week and a half to do these seminars. That's also where I think I want to end up heading in that direction. I love personal training, but I just want a bigger audience, a bigger scale on what I'm trying to promote within that hour or so.
Reaching more people too.
Yeah, if I can fill an auditorium with 300, 400 people and talk for 6 hours, it's just way cooler. I get a lot more done, and
and then also then more time for myself. Like,
Yeah,
that's
and I think it's the theme that we've been talking about as well, that you go and give those seminars, and then people are like, "Oh wow, he's not just quote unquote a bodybuilder."
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing too. Is like, so, okay, how do you balance being a bodybuilder? I'm like, I don't think about it. like the only time I think about being a bodybuilder, gosh, it's almost at the point where it's never now. Like when I train, I train to obviously for how I want to look is a part of that, but it's like it's almost like subconscious now. Like I don't obsess about it while I'm at the gym. I don't think about it outside the gym. And that was, believe it or not, guys, really healthy. Like, when we played sports when we were a kid, we just played the game. We didn't like criticize ourselves the whole way through the game. That'd be crazy. And I think bodybuilding, for some reason, that almost comes second nature due to you're always looking at your flaws in a mirror or being told what you need to improve on by judges or whatnot. So I think like that stigma is just really far out in the bodybuilding industry. But I mean, we see females deal with it every day just by being every day out there in the world, being alive. So I think you can kind of understand how people can get into this mindset of always judging themselves and being hard on themselves. And you just don't need to do that. You don't need to live there. You can put the work in when you do it, be excited when you do it, and then like go on and do fucking some other fun shit. Go to a rave, fucking smoke weed with your friends and hang out and go walk on the beach. It's like people always like, what do you do for fun? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm not just.
You're like, this is fun.
I'm not going to buy new Tupperware for these great meals I'm prepping all week, And I know some people have to do that, but you know what I'm saying, like the way they do it. It's not for.
No, I mean, we did it last night, man. Like we were hanging out with Dayla's younger brother in San Marcos, which is where college is, and she went to HEB real quick and came back with these little teeny Tupperwares. She was like,
"That's totally different." That's totally different though. You're preparing for your work week. It's totally different, so you can be healthy. You're not preparing to get your things into to impress society, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? It's totally different, and I think that's important to express to people. It's like if you're gonna do anything, whether it's a NASCAR driver, a model, a bodybuilder, a professional athlete, do it for yourself, and it becomes beautiful, and you don't think about it all day because it's like a different mindset, I would say. Like I wake up in the morning and do what I do mainly because it's healthy, because I do it for that, and then bodybuilding kind of just falls into place as like everything else like that we do. Like your meals you get are so you can be healthy through the week and be more creative, and then when you can spend more time with each other and have more thought out like your food's not strictly for your physique and like how you want to display it to the world. It's so small, you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
And that's the part where I end up feeling bad about for people. Like, I'm like, man, you could be so much happier if you thought way outside the box of what the fuck you're putting into your meal and like your macros so you have a six pack. Like, just think a little bit bigger. Just please think a little bit bigger. You'd be way fucking happier. I promise. Like, you could be more intelligent than this. Like, if you do one more pose when you're out with your mom at the movies, but it's a side pose where you're on a figure stage, you need to be like more relaxed. Like you need to smoke a J and then take a picture. And that's you. That's who you are, with your mouth half open, all stupid looking, like happy, like with your arm around your friend, not posing.
Yeah, not thinking. And not thinking and getting out of your head.
Present. Like I think that's where I was trying to go in the first half of the pod here, was I couldn't fucking grab it. Was like just fucking stop pretending. You know what I mean? You don't need to be just that. I mean, you don't need to be that at all. Just be you. And if you like that, just do it without fucking talking about it, because then you're in the illusion. Like, who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? You know what I mean? You're trying to tell yourself. But all in all, like that's. I'm glad we can recap on that, because of the first half, I was like trying to get it out.
Well, because even I would say, going back to being kind to oneself, like I think we did a great job, and you're like, oh man, we finally tied it together. Like,
I know, right?
And I was like, no, Justin, I think we were good, but this is good to add.
I'm so hard, and that's the part too. I'm still learning. Like, I'm so hard on myself. I got to realize, I'm like, they don't like it. Fuck them. If they don't like it, fuck them. Like, you don't have to listen, motherfuckers. Like, exactly. And that's the part, too, that I have to remind myself is like, fuck these motherfuckers. If they don't like what I have to say, they don't have to listen. It's cool. Like, and that's a really real thing in the most respectable way. Like, I love all my listeners, but if you don't like it, you don't have to listen. It's okay.
Yeah, we all have that choice.
We all have a choice. But, dude, awesome chat today. That was a lot of fun. Anything else you wanted to
No, it's great. Thank you everybody who does listen and stick around. We love it, and we love doing this, and I'm so happy. This is great, man. I always feel so fucking fantastic after we do these. Dayless season on my face, so
cool.
I'm glad we get to knock it out.
Unfortunately, this won't probably go out till Thursday. What's today? Sunday, because Steph gets back Wednesday, and she handles that for me. So I apologize for like the 3-day delay until this will come out. So we'll probably have this come out Thursday, the latest Friday. We'll see where Steph's at when she settles back in. And that way she can throw the intro song on. And I need to learn how to either do this or hire somebody. But, man,
also,
technology stresses me out, so I don't do it. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Like, when this first didn't work this morning,
like, you and I had trouble connecting this morning. We couldn't even fucking figure it out. And then we were like, of course this would happen when stuff's gone.
Well, you're fine. I just didn't know how to turn on a computer. I was like, fuck, I got to turn on a computer. And I knew, like, this stuff is too simple. Like, and I can't ask for help for this. I can't. This is stuff that everybody should know. It's just that I'm so the opposite, like, of out of it. Like, I don't have a computer. This is Steph's computer. So
you totally can though. Like, my parents have Instagrams, and my mom will, like, on Easter, she's like, "Hey Dayla, can you help me out with my Instagram?" And to us,
adorable.
it's like second nature.
Yeah,
but,
I know. I know. If I was born maybe 10 years later, I'd be fucked. If I was 40, done. Like, because you remember we were 20 when the phones came in. So like, we just caught the cusp. If you're pretty techie. I'm not like I'm a retard when it comes to that kind of stuff. But just
I think you do. Again, I think you do pretty well. Like,
right.
you're online a lot. That's good.
All right, dude. Awesome chatting. Let's link up again soon. Let's try to hit up next week. Let's try to make it
sounds
happen.
good, man.
All right, man. I'll see you.
Bye.